Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Dorks Talk Sports Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jeremy, and joining me is once again Jay Smooth himself.
Yo, yo, yo!
On this episode, we will be taking a look at the AFC East, home to the reigning Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. You ready to discuss this division here, Jay Smooth?
I am, my friend. Let's
All right.
get after it.
Well, might as well get to it then and start off with those defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. What's one of their offseason moves that you enjoyed the most there, Jay Smooth?
For me, it's not so much about the on-field play, but tight end Ben Watson they brought in to try to fill the void there with Gronk leaving. Big hit for them. Ben Watson is a consummate professional who will bring his wisdom and locker room presence. So I'd say he is my favorite acquisition.
Yeah, I like that pickup as well. I think for me, the pickup I like the most would have to be them drafting Chase Winovich, I believe in the third round of the draft. Knew he was a good player in college. I don't think they were expecting him to play as good as he's played so far this preseason, but looks like he's going to add some important depth there on defense, which will always help them out because offense is never an issue for them there with Tom Brady running the show as always.
Still playing.
He's still playing. He's probably going to still play for the next 20 years, but until he's gone, we have to suffer. Yeah, I mean, there's not ever really much to say about the Patriots. They're as consistent as any franchise gets these days. Been doing it for the last 20 years. So, first impression at their schedule, I don't see how they're going to not win at least 13 games. I don't know. What are your thoughts on their schedule this season there, Jay Smooth?
Yeah, it looks pretty smooth for the most part, my friend.
Yeah, I think they get their more difficult opponents at home, like the Steelers, the Dallas Cowboys. They have to go to Philly, which I think will be one of their losses this season. And then they get Buffalo Bills at home early on in the season. And anytime the Patriots struggle, seems to be early on in the season. So I see that they maybe drop that game to the Buffalo Bills there early on. I think it's week 4. Between them and the game at Philly, maybe they have a late game at Houston, I think week 13, and then they have Kansas City at home. I don't see much issue with them winning at least 13 games this season. How many games do you think they could take this year, Josh?
Yeah, I'm with you. I have them winning 12 games this year. I think no matter how bad the Dolphins, Jets, or Bills seem to be, they seem to always play them tight.
Yeah.
Somewhat figured out the formula to try to taking them down.
Yeah, that usually division games are tough. I think that just comes from seeing each other twice a year every single season, sometimes 3 if you ever meet in the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't see the Patriots having any issue with the division this year, just like prior years. I think it's theirs, and unless something, Tom Brady gets hurt or something else happens, it's pretty much going to be theirs. But yeah, looking at the other 3 teams in the division, the one let's discuss now. How about those Buffalo Bills? I think they have a good defense, and that's going to give them a good shot to be out of a sleeper pick for me here. What are your thoughts on the Bills' offseason moves?
I would go as far as saying the Bills have a great defense.
I could agree with that.
Fly under the radar, but I think they were top 5 in pretty much all the important categories last year. I agree. I think they will be the stiffest competition the Patriots face this year.
I do like a lot of their offseason moves, actually. They didn't really lose much, but I think they brought in a lot of key pieces to help the development of Josh Allen, bringing in a couple of veteran running backs, Frank Gore, TJ Yeldon. I believe they drafted a running back as well, Devin Singletary. Thought they had a really good draft, getting Ed Oliver, defensive tackle with I think it was the 8th overall pick.
Yes.
8th or 9th. And then, bringing in a guard, Cody Ford, who's going to probably be there long term. He's a really good guard. Definitely provide some support there for Josh Allen because I think Allen's development is going to be key this season for how far the Bills' success goes. I really like Josh Allen as a player, and I think they're finally giving him some weapons. No real standout weapons. I mean, John Brown's a good deep threat. They have a mishmash there at running back, but I think overall, if he continues to develop, he's got a chance to be really good in this league. And for them to have any kind of success moving forward to go along with that defense, I think it's going to depend on Josh Allen's development. So how many games do you think they could win this year then?
I have the Bills at 7 or 8 wins this year.
Okay.
I agree with you. I like all the moves they made on offense. They didn't really mess with the defense, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I really like the addition of Cole Beasley.
Yeah.
Allen known as a kind of a gunslinger. He's got a cannon, but I think Cole Beasley might be key to him developing if he can kind of check it down more often than he'd like to maybe open up some of those deep passes. I agree with you. I think the Josh Allen development will be the key to them going super far this year.
Right. Yeah, I have them at just about 9 wins, I think. I think they're going to make a push there for that second wild card spot. They do definitely have a bunch of different options now as far as wide receiver goes for Josh Allen. Like we said, John Brown, deep threat there. Cole Beasley, like you said, the check down guy, little dump offs. And then can't forget Zay Jones. They're still waiting for him to break out. Maybe it could be a season now.
This could be the year.
Getting some reps in there with Josh Allen. Finally develop into the receiver they want him to be. And next up, we have the New York Jets, who, as we all know, won the Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes after Bell had sat out all of last year after the Steelers had franchise tagged him a second time. Brought in head coach Adam Gase, formerly of the Miami Dolphins. Not really a big fan of that pickup. Not really a big fan of much of their moves. But is there any move they did make this offseason that you did like?
I like the addition of Jamison Crowder, kind of a slot specialist there for young Sam Darnold, and linebacker C.J. Mosley. They paid him a lot. I think he's really good. I'm not sure if he's quite that good, but he could be. I really like that move to kind of anchor their defense.
Yeah, they didn't really lose much. I don't think they really gained much either. It was more in like the front office, getting a new head coach, GM issues that they were having where their biggest change-up happened. I do like Sam Darnold as a young quarterback. I just don't know if they've done enough to help him out. They did lose a couple guards last year in the offseason, and adding Bell and Crowder are obviously some big offensive moves that could help Darnold, but outside of that, there's not much else. The offensive line isn't really much to write home about. I think they overpaid for C.J. Mosley. I do like a couple of their draft picks, Quinnen Williams, nose tackle, and then Ja'Kai Polite.
I think it's Polite, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, let's go with Polite. It was a good pick. He's an outside linebacker. So pairing those two with C.J. Mosley, I think they definitely upgraded their defense. I think the Jets, they won 4 games last year. I could see them winning more this season. I think they might reach 6, maybe even 7 wins, depending on how much of an impact Bell has, if he's able to kind of be that game changer he was for the Steelers, and then if Darnold, again, continues to develop kind of like Josh Allen. But I could see them maybe winning 6 games this season. What are your thoughts there?
I have them exactly there at 6-10 this year. Mm-hmm. I think their defense is going to be good, but I think their offense is still going to have some growing pain. And Le'Veon Bell is going to be running behind a line that is not nearly as good as his former one, so I'm not quite sure how his running style is going to work on that team. And it seems like the new head coach there, Adam Gase, is having some issues with some of their star players already, so I'm not very optimistic about the Jets this season.
Yeah, there's not much for them that I like, starting with getting Adam Gase as the head coach. He had issues last year in Miami, so that's why they let him go. So I don't really understand why the Jets brought Gase in. And then, they made a couple moves on offense, brought in a couple young guys on defense, but I don't think there's much really to like about the Jets this season. And then we have the Miami Dolphins, who, by the looks of it, are in full-blown rebuild mode this season down there in South Beach. They brought in a new coach as well, Brian Flores, traded in the offseason for Josh Rosen and didn't really give up much for him, so I really like that move. What's a move that you like there, Jay Smooth?
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that Josh Rosen move was pretty key in terms of not giving up much for him, but he could pay off quite heavily. I like how they brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick, kind of mentor Rosen, and I don't know, maybe push him to be the starter. We'll see.
Yeah, it's always good to see a veteran quarterback come in to kind of assist with a young guy like Josh Rosen, who's in his second year here. But if they brought Fitzpatrick in to be their starter, then I think it's going to be an issue then. I think they just got to get Josh Rosen out there, just have him play and learn that way, learn from losing. There's no sense in trading for him and then not playing him. So I think, it'll take a while, but the Dolphins are in rebuild mode for a while, I think. They didn't really gain much. They didn't lose much. There's just not much there, I think. They lost Cameron Wake. He's a really good player. And then I like the guy they drafted, Christian Wilkins. I believe he's a defensive tackle, and he's a big guy, maybe a good guy to build the rebuild around between him and Josh Rosen. But, Miami won 7 games last year. Didn't realize they had won that many games last season. But, this season I don't see them. I actually have them finishing with the worst record in the league. I see them at maybe 2 wins this season. Where do you see them at there, Josh?
Yeah, I give them 2, maybe 3 if they're lucky. But, I think it's going to be tough for them. Fitzpatrick and Rosen battling it out. I think you're right. I think it makes more sense for them just to play Rosen and see what he can do, because he didn't. I don't think he got a fair shot last year. And, I don't see the Dolphins being competitive at all this year, really.
Yeah, and their schedule certainly isn't favorable. They do have an early week 4 bye, so they have that right out of the way. So they're going to have a long second half of the season. They start off with games against Baltimore, New England, Dallas, and the Chargers, so it doesn't really get much harder than that. And then they end up having to go to Pittsburgh and Indianapolis later in the season. Got to go to Cleveland, get Philly coming in home. So their schedule's pretty tough this year. So I think it's going to be a long season there for Dolphins fans, which It's always tough to see, but I think they have the right building blocks in place to move forward for that franchise. It's going to take a season or two before they're able to actually be competitive again. So by the sounds of it, we both have this season playing out kind of the same way, with the Patriots once again winning the division, followed up by Buffalo being semi-competitive, at least maybe giving a push there to the wild card, and then with the Jets and the Dolphins bringing up the basement of the division. Any other thoughts looking forward to this season for this division, Jay Smith?
Yeah, I'd say it's an outside chance, but I could see the Bills, if everything falls together, maybe pushing the Patriots. But until it actually happens, it's hard to go against the defending Super Bowl champs here.
Yeah, like we said before, it's pretty much the Patriots' division to lose. There's not much competition their way that's this season in that division. And then, like I said, with the Patriots' schedule, they get a lot of their tougher opponents at home. So I think it's going to be another chalk season for them, where they put up another 11, 12, 13 wins, be one of the top two seeds in the AFC, make another hard push there at the Super Bowl. All right, how about we move on to the player portion here of the podcast? Who is an overrated player in this division for you?
Ooh, this one might be against most people's opinions, but I'm going to go with wide receiver Julian Edelman here.
Whoa.
Defending Super Bowl MVP.
Interesting pick.
Hear me out here. I think he benefited greatly from having Gronkowski on the field. I think he runs a lot of those shorter routes, and Tom Brady's just so damn accurate on all those throws.
Yeah.
He kind of puts it right where it needs to be, and I think he's just a little bit overrated.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you look at the numbers only, then yeah, he puts up a lot of numbers. He's a good player that way. But I think there's a lot more taken into account that people overlook. The fact that he's playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had a Hall of Fame tight end on the field with him. He's playing for a Hall of Fame coach. He's good, but I could see your argument for him being overrated. My overrated player is also a Patriot, one Michael Bennett. Patriots made a trade for him this offseason to get him from the Philadelphia Eagles. I've never been a big fan of Bennett. I believe he was on a good Seattle defense, real good Seattle defense. And then even in Philly, they had a real good defense there as well. So he's always found his way onto good teams. He's certainly a good player, but I don't think he's as good as he or other people maybe make him out to be.
I would agree with you. I think he's been hyped up most of his career, and I think he's been sort of mediocre. But yeah, he's had his moments, but yeah, I like that call.
All right, now let's move on to the underrated player here. For me, my guy is Josh Rosen down there in Miami. I agree with you. I think he had a bad shake last year in Arizona after they drafted him. They kind of, their season wasn't good, obviously. They had a rough year, kind of in rebuild mode out there as well. Then they obviously had their worst record last season and got the number 1 overall pick, which I can't blame him for drafting Kyler Murray. I think he's a real good quarterback. He's going to have a really good career. But yeah, I feel like Josh Rosen just didn't get a fair shake in Arizona. I think we're going to see some good development out of him. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to do good things down there in Miami. Just got to get the chance first to show how good of a player he is. So who's your underrated player?
I am going with linebacker Tremaine Edmonds from the Buffalo Bills. Like we mentioned before, they are one of the best defenses last year, kind of under the radar, but he is kind of the glue in the middle there. He's a freak at 6'5", 230-ish, and he flies around all over and just makes plays. Yeah. I think not a lot of people talk about him, but I think they will soon enough.
Yeah, he's kind of like the prototypical Buffalo kind of player. Does his job, does it real well, but doesn't get much recognition for it. But yeah, he's one of the anchors to that defense. All right, so who's your breakout player then this season in the AFC East?
I'm going to go with wide receiver Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. Kind of been a speedster, deep threat only most of his short career so far. I believe the addition to Le'Veon Bell might take some attention away from him, and he's apparently learning to run more routes, crossing the middle a little bit this year, and I think he's due for a big season this year.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good player, and getting in some offensive players like Le'Veon Bell and Jamison Crowder should certainly help take a little of the pressure off of him. He's going to be able to get open a little more often, especially if he's running better routes now. That'll always help. My breakout player will be Josh Allen. I'm real big on him. I think over the next few years, Buffalo's going to turn into a pretty good contender. They got a lot of good young pieces there, and I think Allen's going to spearhead that on offense. They got to get a couple younger running backs. I mean, they drafted Singletary, so that's a start, and they brought in a couple younger receivers. Yeah, I really feel like Josh Allen's going to take a couple big steps this year, and he's going to be one of the key reasons why they're going to be fighting for a wild card spot there late in the season. So yeah, Josh Allen's my breakout player this season.
I think that's a great call. He kind of reminds me of a young Brett Favre, maybe a little more athletic, but just watching him play, he definitely has all the tools there. If he can figure it out, I think he could have a huge year.
Yeah, it's high comparisons, but he is super athletic. He likes to sling the ball around out there. And we saw last year, he ran the ball a ton, even though he's not known for his running ability. But yeah, he's definitely got all the tools, I think, to become a really good quarterback here in this league. let's wrap up this episode of the podcast with some closing final thoughts on this division this year. What's a final thought you have for the AFC East, Josh?
I think potentially this could be a 3-team race, but more realistically, I think it's the Patriots and Bills, the Dolphins, like you said, full rebuild mode, perhaps battling for that number 1 pick next season. And the Jets, I think they'll improve a little bit, but just not enough there quite yet.
Yeah, Miami definitely in full rebuild. Jets are just, kind of platonic right now, not really moving anywhere. Bills are definitely on the up and up, but as far as this season goes, it's the Patriots. Once again, we're going to be seeing them, make a big run. Division's theirs. I don't really see any team really giving them competing against them for the division title, so we're just going to have to wait and see how far they make a run this season. Could end up in another Super Bowl. Who knows? We'll see.
I would have to agree. As long as Tom Brady's the quarterback and Bill Belichick is the head coach, it's tough to take it down.
Yeah, one day they'll retire, hopefully before we retire.
Hopefully before we die.
Well, we can only hope. Alright, well that wraps up this episode of the Dorks Talk Sports podcast. We want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. Remember, you can listen to us on SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Play.
As always, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Join us next time as we take a look at the competitive NFC North. You won't want to miss that one.
That's going to be good.